So I'm off on a photo adventure here. First photo adventure after I retired. Home on Friday, August 8th, I think it was. First stop was the Fort Pierre National Grasslands. So look for some burrowing owls. I almost got run off the highway on the way out there by a semi early in the morning. Fortunately, it was a wide shoulder there. But did find, stopped at the Forest Service office and got some map of where the prairie dog towns were. And so managed to get some pictures of the burrowing owls. Nothing great. There was seemed to be at least one burrowing owl at every prairie dog town that I stopped at, except on the ones where people were shooting the prairie dogs. Sure was a lot of people out shooting prairie dogs too. I tried to stay away from them. But the first night I camped in the Theodore National Grassland. It was kind of weird. Video. I thought I'd try to make something up here for kids, grandkid, and way to take people with on my adventures. But yeah, from here, Fort Pierre Grasslands, I went to some national forest and I stopped at the Terry Badlands Overlook for a night. Moved on to Slippery Ann Elk View. I wanted to check that out. I'm trying to get out there when the elk are running. I know there was no elk around there this time. Sure, a lot of birds there, but no elk. No. Last night, then I was stayed by the Medicine Lake National Wildlife Refuge. Of course, you can't camp in the National Wildlife Refuge, so I drove out of the refuge along a gravel road there and found a space to pull over. And there was no houses or nothing, just fields there. And so I slept there last night, and I'm almost positive nobody went by. I didn't see anybody. But today I drove to Theodore Roosevelt, the North Unit Park there. I set up camp. I'm going to camp here a couple nights, look for a rutting buffalo, and try and shoot some Milky Way photos. But I'm going to switch the angle on the camera and got my campsite here. This is my camp set up in the Suburban there. I can roll the sleeping bag out and I can keep all my stuff in there, so I can just go and stop and go whenever I want. I can spread out a little more when I have a campsite here today. So we'll see how it goes. See if I can put a video together here. It'll be a little bit of a challenge. But I didn't know much about this photography business, and I've learned a lot about that, so maybe I can learn how to make some videos too. We'll see how it goes. All right, now the rest of the video, it's going to be voiceover since I did a poor job of recording my audio while I was out in the field. Here we have the upland sandpiper. That's in the grasslands, the Fort Pierre National Grasslands. There's also a bunch of killdeer in the stock pond, what I'd call a stock pond, but they have dams in all the low area or valleys. And here we have a antelope. Seen a lot of antelope out there. But yeah, they have the dams and all the swales to catch rainwater and that. But I'm going to shut up now and let you listen to a prairie dog talk. Got some good moon setting pictures from the campground in Fort Pierre National Grassland before moving on to the Custer-Gallatin National Forest, where I camped at the Picnic Spring Campground. There I had a great view for a sunset. The wind was blowing like crazy, and it was still too bright moon to take Milky Way, but I got some moonrise picture there. And then the next day I continued exploring through the Custer-Gallatin National Forest campground. Along the way in my travels, when I was going down the highway, I seen these antlers sticking out of the grass, and I had to spin around and then seen a whole bunch of these mule deer bucks out in the grass there. So I got some pictures of them. I continued exploring the Custer-Gallatin National Forest and moved into Montana. The roads were pretty good in the South Dakota section of the Custer-Gallatin National Forest. And I found some sunrise pictures along the way and found a nice pond where there was a bunch of shorebirds. I got a bunch of good pictures of shorebirds at this pond. And I continued on into Montana. It's still a Custer-Gallatin National Forest. But then the roads got a lot poorer there in some places, and some they weren't so bad, but there were sure cattle in the road. Seen a lot of cattle in the forest, and found some neat birds, lots of red-headed woodpeckers, and I had fun photographing them. And must have photographed or seen at least a dozen of the red-headed woodpeckers. Person never knew when you're going to come across the cattle. They were everywhere. And at one point, I come across the mountain bluebird. Got some nice pictures of him sitting on the fence. And then some little farther on, there was a western wood pewee on the fence there. That was pretty cool. So as I continued exploring through the National Forest area here, and then went toward the Terry Badlands Overlook. And the road was pretty good until the end getting up there. But it was the view when I got up there, and I was able to camp there for the night. So it was pretty cool. Quite a view from up there. No people. Had the whole place to myself. Never saw another person up there. A little sketchy the last bit getting up there, so I think I put a couple of scratches from the brush into the side of the Suburban, but I was trying to avoid the ruts. But anyway, it was very fun place to see. I was hoping to get some Milky Way photos there, but there's still too much moonlight there. But I did get some really nice moon rising pictures over the Terry Badlands. So the next day I continued on towards the Charles M. Russell National Wildlife Refuge and the Slippery End elk viewing area. And I wanted to check that area out, so I want to get back out there and toward the end of September, see if I can find some rutting elk and that. And first I drove down a road through into the Cedar Breaks National Monument, I think it is. That was someone had driven there when it was wet. It was pretty rutted up and that. So I drove up, and then I decided to turn around and continue on into the Charles M. Russell Wildlife Area. The roads were much better in there. This one didn't have any gravel on here, so it was dry when I went, so it was fine, but there was sure ruts from somebody going through there, and a pretty steep hill that I went up. Now I'm going back down towards the highway there. You can see off in the distance. Gas stations are few and far between out here, and I had gassed up in Grass Range before coming up here, but that's about 40 miles away on the highway, and then Malta's to the north, another 60 miles. But the roads were much better in the Charles M. Russell Wildlife Area. I got to the Slippery End elk viewing area. I didn't see any elk, but there was lots of birds around there. And it's some interesting country to explore. You can, up on top, you can sure see a long ways. And down by the Missouri River, then it's all kinds of trees and stuff down there, cottonwood trees and birds. Well, there was a lot of birds up on top too in the grassland there, but they were tough to get pictures of. But
found a really nice place to camp right on the Missouri River there. So I was able to do some night photography there. Got pictures of the moon rising over the Missouri River and the Milky Way there. It was still quite a bit of moonlight in the sky. But then the next day, we had a beautiful sunrise over the Missouri River and did some more exploring on the road. Didn't see any elk today either, but there was lots of birds there and that. Could hear birds singing like crazy here when I was getting my breakfast ready and stuff. Guess you can even hear them in the background a little bit now, maybe. But then I come up, there's some cliff swallows in the one spot there along the way. And I had fun watching them feeding the little ones in the nests and flying back and forth. But they had a lot of nests built in under the cliff there. That's quite a few cliff swallows there. It was another beautiful day. The weather was great. Kept looking for birds. Come across a house wren. Had a nice picture of the house wren. And then there was spotted towhee. This kestrel, kept getting pictures of it on signposts. Finally got a picture on the grass. This is a female lazuli bunting. I don't know if I'm saying that. Lazuli bunting. After that, I headed up toward Malta and Baldwin National Wildlife Refuge. There was all kinds of shorebirds up there. Marbled goldwits, the long-billed dew-witchers. Then we got in. The whole lake was surrounded with shorebirds, just millions of them. Everywhere you looked, there were shorebirds, all different kinds. I'm sure there was a lot that I didn't identify, but it was a long ways away, a lot of them to take pictures. It was tough to get close to them and that, but there sure was a lot of shorebirds there. I think this is a marbled godwit here. And here's a long-billed dew-witcher. This is more pictures of all the birds there. A whole bunch of different kinds. Hard to tell how many different kinds are in there. Yep, seemed like there was a lot of mud exposed, so they were feeding on that. I suppose they control the water level there and let the water out. And I think this is a marbled godwit here. Here's some redneck pharaohs, I think. These are American avocets in this picture, the bigger ones. These birds here are the redneck pharaohs. They spin around in circles. I guess they stir up some kind of little things that they can eat in that, but they're known for spinning in circles and circles and circles. Well, I had fun watching them for quite a while there, where they would spin around like that and grab the bugs. And them things, they go way north, far north Arctic for breeding, but then they go way South America and are off the coast of South America, the west coast of South America in the tropics for the winter time then. I think this is a semi-palmated sandpiper here. There's a greater yellow legs. I continued on to the Medicine Lake National Wildlife Refuge in eastern Montana. Ended up camping outside the refuge alongside a gravel road on a driveway for a field driveway, and never seen anybody during the night. Woke up to a rainbow in the morning, continued on to Theodore Roosevelt Park in the next day, the North Unit. So ended up camping there for 2 nights. Seen lots of buffalo there. Every time I was up on top, I would see buffalo there. Had a real nice campsite. Got some real nice Milky Way photos there. I had real close action with the buffalo. A lot of times they were right up in the road, and I guess it's the rutting season, so there was some rutting action going on. The bulls were chasing the cows. The more bulls, the cows like to run them all over the place and chase, make them chase. And I try to fight a little bit, but they never fight too serious. But then every once in a while, they like to roll in the dirt and make big dust storms, and they're grunting away to beat everything. I'll have a segment coming up here where you can listen to the buffalo grunting, but felt pretty safe in the car there from them, but I wouldn't want to be outside by them there. Don't know what they're going to do. But there are some crazy people who aren't scared to be outside at them. I saw one goofy guy, I don't know what he was trying to do, the poor buffalo. I'm surprised he didn't get gored, but did take a video of the idiot in case he did get gored. But otherwise, I do enjoy watching the buffalo, and I'm going to shut up now and let you listen to the buffalo. leaving the north unit of Theodore Roosevelt, my plan was to camp in the south unit, but it was the weekend and I decided it'd be too crowded, so I headed south from Medora and ended up at the Burning Coal Vein campground in the Dakota Prairies grassland. Had a great experience with the cedar waxwing, but nice and close, and it wasn't scared of me at all. Had some great Milky Way photograph opportunities that night. It was a beautiful spot to camp for, and really enjoyed my time there. Did get some moonrise pictures there too, star trails and that. And then the next day I ran into some great bird viewing. This is a red-tailed hawk, yellow warbler here. Next we have the solitary sandpiper. And of course, lots of cedar waxwings were around. They were busy feeding on insects there by this little watering hole, but had fun photographing them. Continuing on, I went past a bunch of sunflower fields. Well, they were all over North Dakota and South Dakota. It's kind of fun to see them and get some pictures of them. But my next destination was the Grand River National Grassland. I got some more pictures of some burrowing owls. You can hear some of the sounds of the grasslands here in the background here. But it seemed a lot quieter around the Grand River National Grassland than it was at the Pierre National Grassland that I'd stopped at first in the trip. But I found some burrowing owls here too. Person's got to look pretty hard to spot them in the prairie dog towns. They sure blend in and kind of look like prairie dog. It was fun to see them here. And then I also seen a hawk come fly and sit down, and I thought, well, I'm going to get ready and get it when it flies up. But it sat there, and I think it settled in for a night, but it was a first for me. It was a Swainson's hawk. That was pretty cool to see that. But then the next day, then I continued on towards Jamestown and the Arrowwood National Wildlife Refuge. Did some exploring up there. Not a lot of wildlife. Saw some pretty prairie flowers there, and then got this butterfly video. But from that point, then I moved on down to the Tewakan National Wildlife Refuge, and I spent some time at Sand Lake Wildlife Refuge too, where I saw these bird bath, and I know it's goldfinches, and I'm not sure what the bigger bird is there, but it was fun watching them in the bird bath field there. And then once I got over to the Tewakan National Wildlife Refuge, there was a field that was flooded there, and it was full of glossy ibises. It was kind of fun seeing them there, but this kind of wound the trip up with an eagle eating on something. This was by the Tewakan National Wildlife Refuge. Spent the last night there at a wildlife management area just outside of the National Wildlife Refuge, and had a safe trip home the next day. Overall, it was a real fun trip, and I'm looking forward to headed out again in end of September, see if I can find some rutting elk. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy it. I guess I'm supposed to say like and subscribe. I don't know how many more of these videos I'll do, but it's a lot of work, and it's kind of a whole different challenge than just taking pictures. But anyway, thank you.